Good day, everybody. And once again, we are back together. All right, so today we are looking at question 5 from that technical maths paper 1, exemplar from 2017, right? So please, if you haven't subscribed, just make sure that you hit that subscribe button right now. And let's get into the question. So they are giving us f of x, which is negative 2 over x plus 2, and a circle, which is x squared plus y squared equal to 9. Right, now they say to us, write down the equation of the asymptotes of f of x. Now, so this is definitely a hyperbola, okay? So I know that in this case, there's our horizontal asymptote, right? So my pen sometimes just misbehaves. Right, so that's my horizontal asymptote, right? So that's going to be at the line x is equal to 0 because there's absolutely no other number at the denominator there, right? So rather, that's our vertical asymptote, not horizontal. So essentially, and we'll draw this a little bit later, right? So the equation of our asymptotes would be at x is equal to 0, as well as at y, okay, that's our horizontal asymptote, that's y is equal to 2. Now, what you need to keep in mind, so for instance, if, let's say, we had a negative 2 over x minus 1, okay, let's say plus 2, then it means that in this case, this would be our vertical asymptote. It would be at x is equal to 1. You must remember to change the sign of it, okay? But in this case, because we didn't have any number there, just the x, that's why we said x equal to 0, as well as y is equal to 2. Right, now let's go into the next question. They say determine the coordinates of the x and y intercepts of f of x. Right, so we're going to do this as we normally do. Okay, so for the x-intercepts, right, we know that y is equal to 0. So this is for the x-intercept. Okay, so we know that y is equal to 0. So which means negative 2 over x plus 2 is equal to 0. And let's try to solve it. So that's negative 2 over x, which will be equal to negative 2. Okay, let me just switch this guy off. All right, we don't want any suggested results there. Right, so what does that give me? So if I cross multiply, that means that negative 2 times x will give me negative 2x. And negative 2 times 1 will give me negative 2. And if I divide both sides by negative 2, I get x is equal to 1. So I know that my x-intercept will be at 1 and 0. Okay, right, we need to keep that in mind. But what about the y-intercept? We know this is where x is equal to 0, right? So for our y-intercept, we know that x is equal to 0. So we're going to take f of 0. So everywhere we saw x on this equation, we're going to put 0 there. So minus 2. Now, please, I want you to note in this case, what does that mean? Minus 2 over 0 plus 2. What does this suggest to us? This is undefined, isn't it, ladies and gents? So it means there is no y-intercept for this guy here. So it doesn't touch, in this case, our y, or rather, it is not, we do not have a y-intercept in this case. So that is undefined. Undefined. Okay, right. So that's how we are going to do that. Okay, so they say to us, determine the radius of the circle. Now, please, I want you to note, when it comes to the circle, okay, so there we've got the equation of the circle. That's x squared plus y squared is equal to r squared. So usually we know that the equation, for the equation of the circle, you've got that as r squared. So r squared is equal to 9. So meaning that r squared is equal to 9, meaning that r would be equal to plus or minus 3, but the radius is simply going to be equal to 3. Okay, the square root of that number. All right, so that's for 5.3. Okay, let's just label. Okay, this was 5.2, and we answered 5.1 onto there. Right, now let's go to the next question. Right, so 5.4, what do we have over there? They say to us, sketch the circle and the graph of f of x on the same system, indicating all asymptotes and the intercepts of the x with the axes. Right, now let's try and draw this graph as quickly as we possibly can. Okay, so on the circle, we know that our circle is going to have the center 0. Okay, right, so they haven't moved it, shifted the circle, so it will have a center at 0. Right, so say 1, 2, and 3. In fact, let's try and just draw that circle over there. Let's see if we can get it to have to be, oops, it looks more like, okay, you know what I should do? Let me rather do this. Yeah, that's much better. Okay, so that's the origin. So what will it be? It will have the coordinates 3, minus 3, that's 3, as well as negative 3. So that's what our circle is going to look like. Now let's go for the hyperbola. Now I want you guys to please note, we said we've got an x-intercept, right, which is at 1 and 0. So x-intercept is 1 and 0. And what do we note about our hyperbola? We know that it's got a vertical asymptote. Okay, we did say that it is at x is equal to 0, right? So in this case, and a y, or rather a horizontal asymptote at y is equal to 2, right? So in this case, I want you guys to note x is equal to 0 is the y-axis, and y is equal to 2. So I'm going to get the asymptotes to have a different color. Okay, let's say 1, that's 2. Yeah, let's say 2 somewhere there. Okay, there we go. All right, chose to elevate it a bit, but it doesn't really matter. Okay, so this is the horizontal asymptote. Now, what does this mean? It means that our graph is going to look something like this. I'm going to draw it in a different color. Oh, and by the way, sorry about that. I forgot to mention, our A value is negative, right? So if I look at this, my A value is negative, and what this simply tells me, if I look at that, my A value is negative, and so when I look at it, it means that my graph, my hyperbola, is going to be, now please I want you guys to note the following. That means that my hyperbola, oops, I'm just trying to get that pen to work. So my hyperbola, when A is negative, sits on the second and the fourth quadrant of your axes, right? Of your shifted axes. So which means this is what my graph is going to look like. In fact, I think that should have been -1. Did I make a mistake somewhere? Let's see that. Okay. All right. So that means my hyperbola is going to sit there. The other one is going to sit over there. Okay, and my pen keeps misbehaving. Right, so there it is. And the other one is sitting over there. Right, so that is what your graph is going to look like. Okay, right, so there it is. It's cutting at x is equal to 1. So we know that this is going to be our f of x. The green graph is f of x. And of course, the other one is our circle. Right, and then they say to us, determine the equation of the line of symmetry of f of x with a negative gradient. Now, please note again, ladies and gents, whenever we get the line of symmetry of the hyperbola, right, we always start with the line. We've got two of them. We've got y is equal to x plus k1. The other one is y is equal to negative x plus k2. But remember, in order for us to find the values of k respectively, k1 and k2, that means that we're going to substitute the intersection, now please note, of your asymptotes, which means that point over there. What is that point? That's going to be the point 0, as well as 2, okay? So that's going to be your y-intercept, okay? So, not rather your y-intercept, it means this is your two asymptotes. Remember the first asymptote is at x is equal to 0. So it's this line over here, the x-axis, right? But where do they intersect? At the line where we've got 0 as well as 2. But they said to us, we need to take the one with a positive gradient. You remember that, right? They said, or rather with a negative gradient. So they were taking this one over here. So we know that we've got, so we know we're not dealing with this one. Y is equal to negative x plus k2. Right, and let's substitute now. So when x is 0, y is negative, is 2. It's minus 0 plus k2. And so k2 is equal to 2. So which means the equation will be y is minus x plus 2. That is the equation of the axes of symmetry. Please go and look up equations, right? In this case for grade 11. And I promise you, you'll be able to understand this a little bit more. All right, let's go on to the next one. Right, the next question. They say to us, write down, or rather, what is the range of f of x? Now, you remember in this case that f of x is applicable for all values of y. So it looks like this. Okay, our hyperbola looks something like this. But it doesn't exist on that asymptote. Okay, so it looked like this. Okay, and where does it not exist? At the line y is equal to 2, right? So in this case, y is an element of real numbers. However, y cannot be equal to 2. Okay, right, and then finally, they say give the domain of the circle. So remember that the domain is where your circle exists. In this case, our circle starts from negative 3 to 3. So x will be an element of negative 3 to 3. That's the highest, that's the minimum and the highest value of x for your circle. All right, and that is truly how the cookie crumbles, ladies and gents. I hope that you understood that, and we will be looking at question 6 next. But for now, we'll see each other next time. Sharp, sharp.